but it's happening again this year. Just on one, Scribbler may have even written about that. In 1 week, uh, it, it multiplied. The ice.
Welcome to the Solar Stage. This is our second workshop today. And I'd like to introduce Chuck Lynn. He's with Simply Living, and the title of the workshop is Local is the New Radical. As you know, the communities across the country and here in Columbus there's a push for going local. You know, local gardens, local shopping, local consumption, and it's occurring more and more. Simply Living has been on the top, at the leading action as far as what's going on here in Columbus. Been open for 22 years. It's very involved with WCRS 98.3. It's a low frequency FM, and though I don't think they're managing it right now, but they're the ones that are responsible for getting the license, which is pretty difficult nowadays. So I'd like to just start off the workshop here with Chuck. He's got a great presentation for you. Let's welcome Chuck Lynn, Simply Living.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And this is going to be a variety of themes that will be emerging from the presentation, and we're going back and forth with the PowerPoint and with some videos, and we'll do those as we move through this. And Simply Living, as he said, has dots, and it's moving toward an emerging localism or localist agenda, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to try to go back and forth with it's hard to see, but most of you are up front, so feel free to come on closer and see that what we have here is what I'm calling the localist movement. So Tim mentioned a few, like the buy local, eat and farm local, bank and invest local, green building. We have local transit options, indie media and arts, learn local. How about an education curriculum that really focuses on the local in ecology, environment, business, right here and wherever we live. Live simply, sustainably. We started this 22 years ago with a simple idea that if we would pay attention to our lifestyle choices and just cut back a little bit from the consumer economy, that we would be making a statement right there. And that sort of begins it all, this living simply and paying attention to our ecological footprint. Clean energy efficiency is also part of local energy, getting off the big grid and not being less dependent upon fossil fuels. And the sharing economy, which is focused more on the local but also on the sustainable and a place-based economics, which we're going to get into as we go through this. Play a short video, about 4 or 5 minutes. I just showed it, but this is the way you're going to see it from the beginning. And this video is from the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, which is a national group, and our network here in Columbus is part of that national group, and we have a common vision, which I'm going to I think is the next slide. Nope, didn't show up unless I went too far. There you go. So the vision of this group, this Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, is a great vision for the localist agenda, and I'm going to read it in case you can't quite see it, but we envision a thriving local economy that functions in harmony with local ecosystems to to meet the basic needs of all people, support just and democratic processes, and foster joyful community life. I think that's a vision that we all share, would like to see it happen. And there's some reasons we don't have it yet, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and we're going to start off with a nice, energizing video that's going to talk about the localist agenda. And you have to kind of, I don't know what getting a little bit fuzzy there, but better. So if you want to come up closer, if that helps, but I tried to read the words. There's no words that will be spoken on this video that we're going to do, but it is words on the screen and done in a kind of artful way, and it communicates the themes about the localist agenda. Yes, we can. Si se puede. Hope you enjoyed that little video. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that make the localist agenda necessary, because we have some problems. I'm going to get back to the slideshow. So we're going to go through about 6 slides, and we're going to try to explain why we have this issue that we need a local economy, because we've really lost a strong local economy, and we need a new kind of local economy anyway. So we have this great window of opportunity to, which we'll get into a little bit later, but right now, one of the questions that happens a lot, I got to be careful with this thing. I should stay on this side, or? Okay, try to avoid the feedback, because I keep turning around and getting the wrong thing to happen. Okay, from 1960 to 2010, 50 years, we had a huge change in what happened to our economy. You don't need to see the details of that chart, but we've had a decline in manufacturing and an increase in non-local businesses. So during that 50-year period, we lost 50% of our manufacturing base, not just Ohio, but the whole Midwestern states. So this was a huge issue, and now I'm realizing I need my my notes, which, let's see, Sheila, would you get my notes out of the thing there? Out of the bag at the corner. Sorry for this unprofessional interruption here, but I forgot my notes in the course of setting up the stuff. So, yes, be careful, but it's the bag, the brown bag. So during this period, this was a definite problem in the sense that it created an opportunity when we weakened our economy. We're losing all those manufacturing jobs that were good paying and that were union jobs, and a lot of people talk about, this is a common knowledge that this happened, but what they don't say is why it happened. Okay, it happened because the EPA passed clean air laws, clean water laws, lots of reforms, and we had strong unions back in the 1960s and 1970s. So what happened was that the manufacturers, the people that own these plants, took the opportunity for various reasons. It's a complicated thing, but the bottom line is they moved away. And we left many communities struggling, and we lost our downtowns in many cases. If you were dependent upon a big power plant or a paper mill or dependent upon something that left, then you were struggling with losing hundreds and sometimes thousands of jobs in small communities. And I grew up in Ironton, Ohio. That's what happened. We lost a lot of manufacturing right along the Ohio River. It just moved away. We lost 40% of our population. So this is a common thing that has happened. And now I want to point out that, again, I don't know how much you can see of this, but what are the economic effects of making less and consuming more? What happened was that when we lost the manufacturing base, Wall Street saw this as an opportunity. They saw this as an opportunity to say, well, you're weak, but we can come up with our investors, and we can create your department stores, your grocery stores, your restaurants, your pharmacies, your hardware stores, your auto supply stores, your office, your bookstores, your motels and hotels, independent realtors, insurance agents, and I even see a non-local healthcare emergency room situation. So the bottom line is that the great majority of all sectors of the retail goods and services economy, which is about two-thirds, it's about 70% of our national economy, became colonized by Wall Street or investors out of state who then owned the grocery stores and took a percentage of profits from all of those non-locally owned businesses and took them out of our economy and took the information, took outside suppliers whenever they did this, and this, we'll get more into that detail, but as this happened, Ohio's shift from mostly union manufacturing jobs to non-union services and retail jobs resulted in a slow decline in per capita income. Ohio used to rank well above the national average in per capita income until 1980. Today, our per capita income ranks 33rd in the nation. We earn 10% less than the national average of $40K. Ohio's per capita income is now about $36K, and the city of Columbus per capita is only $23K. So people don't recognize how much poverty is in cities, and this is a common pattern. This is again continuing that same theme. What are the economic effects of making less manufacturing, and consuming more because we've got all this retail economy from non-local businesses coming in? So there was a study of 363 standard metropolitan areas in the United States. Columbus ranks number 350 in the sense of being dominated by chains, local, non-local owned stores. Great Lakes states rank 8th of 9 USA regions. Out of 35 SMAs, or statistical metropolitan areas, that are larger, like 1 to 3 million in the metropolitan area, out of 35 of those cities, Columbus ranks number 34. Cleveland number 35 out of 35, and Cincinnati number 32. So what this is saying is that our retail economies have been dominated. our local retail economy has been dominated by non-local businesses to the extent that we are just at the bottom. We're at the cellar. If people think about developing a new business today, they often do it by starting with a franchise, because that's what the options are. We don't have the capacity to build our own companies and entrepreneurs. Now, we're changing that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So here's a little chart that not easy to see this chart, but we have it over in our booth in the Peace Village. So come by and you can get more details. But basically, if you spend $100 on in a non-local business, about 43 of those dollars remain in the local economy to recirculate, multiply, and create jobs and create taxes. If you spend it at a locally owned business, $68 stays in the local economy. So it's not a black or white thing, it's not good or evil, but there's a difference of $25. 68 take away 43, that's $25 that is leaking out of the economy and not being available to recirculate or multiply throughout the local economy to hire more people, to do more investment and all those good things. So if you were just a 10% shift, to give you an idea how much this involves, a shift from just 10% from chain to local would retain $312 million in Franklin County alone. That $312 million would create 5,000 new jobs. So think to yourself, when you're buying at a locally owned restaurant, grocery store, hardware store, et cetera, that 10% shift is saving money. You're creating a jobs program just by buying local. And we have to realize when we bring in these non-local businesses, it's a net job loss in terms of the actual effect. Walmart moves in, Lowe's moves in, they hire people, yeah, but they pay them at a lower rate than the rate that they were getting, and the result is a problem for our local economy. Okay, there is a positive trend here. Buy local campaigns are here. We have lots of buy local. We're going to hear more about that later. And I wanted to say that the opposite is true. When you're kind of wrapping your head around what it means to buy local, that 10% shift, if we have another 10% shift toward more chain stores, that means we're going to lose another $312 million. We're going to lose 5,000 jobs. So we need to think that through. Okay, the same in the farming community. Let me see if I got the thing. Okay, 100 years ago, 40 cents out of every dollar went directly to the farmer. Today, only 7 cents out of that dollar goes directly to the farmer. 73 cents goes to the cost of marketing and distribution. Because we have a global system, we're shipping apples from China and Washington State to buy them here in Columbus when you could be getting them locally from the Lynn Fruit Farm. But they have to play the same game. Everybody has to play this global game, which is highly subsidized in order to make the stuff cheap. Now, there's a positive trend. Obviously, we have more local farm markets, more urban farming, more community gardens, more community-supported agriculture programs, and there's now an economic incentive and opportunity to produce and distribute food locally. The head of the Ohio Farm Bureau told Brian Williams of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Consortium that commodity farmers, the big ag farmers, could profitably set aside 10 or more acres and begin producing and distributing food locally through farmers markets, computers, CSAs, et cetera. Hopefully that's a trend that's going to be continuing as we evolve, as we have to evolve away from a heavily fossil fuel dependent food infrastructure and chemical nutrition added to it, to a local organic farming community that's urban and small farms surrounding our communities as it was originally. And, oops, went too far. Okay, how has globalization of finance capitalism affected investment in our local economy? Well, it's a big problem because if you add up all the savings in the United States, all the IRAs, all the pension funds, all the savings accounts, the IRAs, all that savings money is what we have in order to invest in our local economy. Unfortunately, today, almost all of that money that's in our savings account is being invested by pension fund managers and 401k managers, money markets, CDs, all those dollars are being invested in a Fortune 1000 companies that are typically multinational, they're national in scope, and they're doing that because that's where the greatest return on investment is coming from. You can't tell the pension, well, we are telling the pension fund folks to divest from fossil fuels. We're telling them to invest in green energy and do better things with their money, but they're not still they're not investing locally. Now, if this is particularly keenly, you can picture how this can be dealt with in a profitable way for the local economy if even a small amount of that money were shifted, because you can't outsource everything. About 50% on average of the local economy, of any local economy, is local. The other 50% is non-local, okay? But almost all the investment is going to the non-local. So there's a shift. We have to move that needle to get more investment locally, and we're going to talk about that later, how we're accomplishing some of that. Okay, now I'm back to this same chart I had before, but I changed the title to say localist movements are game changers. We disrupt business as usual. Now, think about that. We disrupt the farming infrastructure if we're starting the whole local food movement. That's a disruptor for people that are in the agribusiness, because 97% of the food that we grow in Ohio is going to food processing plants. It's going to feed animals. It's not going from farm to table, where we're changing that. So we got that 3%. We got to move it 4% as we get more schools, hospitals, local leaders that are interested in the quality of their food. That's us. That's great. That's happening, and that's an encouraging trend. But you see, we have a big uphill climb. Well, it's the same for the buy local. You know, we're in Columbus, Ohio, and the Midwest area. We're way down on the list of local economies because we have that trend I just talked about. So we're up against the great big discount stores, chain stores, which have heavily dominated the market. You know, the grocery stores, there are very few. We have a few co-ops left. We have Hills Market. We have Rife's Market in Grandview. There are some, but most of the grocery stores are Kroger and Giant Eagle and chains that are taking the money out of our economy. Now, at least Kroger does take it over to Cincinnati, but they're the #2 national chain in the country. So again, chain stores taking money out of the economy, local keeping it in. But we're way behind. The fraction of sales going to local organic food co-ops, et cetera, is a tiny fraction of the food dollar. Just 10, 12 years ago, Walmart had about 4% of the food dollar. Today, 25 cents out of every dollar spent on food is in Walmart. So we have to change that, and we have to change that through policy levels, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So we bank and invest local. We're trying to have a move your money movement, move it out of Chase and out of the national banks and into credit unions and local community banks where the mortgages are held locally, the money is reinvested locally. Somebody at the local bank or credit union actually can service your loan because they actually have the money or they have the paperwork, and you don't have to guess, where your mortgage has been resold into the global financial casino. So we have some people who are appreciating these insights. Green building, same kind of thing was mentioned. The builders and forests. You know, we have to do green building now. We have to pay attention to that. We're going to hear about that from the Columbus Green Building Council shortly. Local transit options. Obviously, that's a whole movement. The transportation. We started riding our bicycles, walking more. We want neighborhoods that are walkable. We want services and local businesses right in the neighborhood, so you don't have to take a trip in your car to go out to a destination Walmart or shopping center. Independent media. We have very little. We have the Wolf family. We have they bought up all the local community newspapers as well as the Dispatch. It's not that they're evil. It's just that there's a monopoly of the kind of information that's available in print media. They also own television and radio stations. We won't name them. So on and on, we have movements that are surfacing and emerging from the local area, and obviously it's important for everybody to begin to think about making decisions so that we're part of that movement, so everybody can be part of each of these movements. We can all think about, how much I'm using the car, how much I'm using, and I'm guilty of that. I commute. But we need to think about all our choices and how that's going to affect our ecological footprint. But that might not be enough. And I'm going to show you a short video now from Annie Leonard, who has given a lot of thought. She's the woman who came up with the Story of Stuff project, which is a great storyofstuff.org. She's got 8 or 9 short videos. And I'm going to show one called The Story of Change, and where she reflects on the change process, because we're in a position where we have to change, a big change, and reinvent a lot of our institutions. And we're going to figure out how to do that through the localist agenda. But right now, we're going to put this on mute and get the other video up.
In season 1 of The Story of Stuff, we looked at a system that creates way too much stuff and way too little of what we really want. Now we're going to start looking at the stories behind the story of stuff. That's where we'll find ways to turn this situation around. Welcome to season 2. Ever since I learned where our stuff really comes from and how this system is trashing people and the planet, I've been trying to figure out how we can change it. I've read a lot of these. 100 ways to save the planet without leaving your house. 50 simple things you can do to save the earth. The Little Green Book of Shopping. I thought these might have the answers, but their tips all start here, with buying better stuff. And they all end here, with recycling all that stuff when I'm done with it. But when it comes to making change, this story of going green, even though we see it everywhere, has some serious shortcomings. It says that if I become a smarter shopper and tell all my friends to do the same, I've done my part. And if I don't buy all this green stuff, then it's my fault the planet's being destroyed. Wait a minute, my fault? I didn't choose to put toxic products on the shelves or allow slave labor in factories around the world. I didn't choose to fill stores with electronics that can't be repaired and have to be thrown away. I didn't choose a world in which some people can afford to live green, leaving the rest of us to be irresponsible planet wreckers. Of course, when we do shop, we should buy the least toxic and most fair products we can. But it's not bad shoppers here who are the source of the problem. It's bad policies and bad business practices here. And that's why the solutions we really need are not for sale at the supermarket. If we actually want to change the world, we can't talk only about consumers voting with our dollars. Real change happens when citizens come together to demand rules that work. Look, it is important to try to live green. As Gandhi said, be the change. Living our values in small ways shows ourselves and others that we care. So it is a great place to start. But it is a terrible place to stop. After all, would we even know who Gandhi was if he just sewed his own clothes and then sat back waiting for the British to leave India? So how do we make big change? To answer that question, I went back and looked at Gandhi, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, the US civil rights movement, and the environmental victories here in the 1970s. They didn't just nag people to perfect their day-to-day choices, they changed the rules of the game. It turns out there are 3 things you find whenever people get together and actually change the world. First, they share a big idea for how things could be better. Not just a little better for a few people, a whole lot better for everyone. And they don't just tinker around the edges. They go right to the heart of the problem, even when it means changing systems that don't want to be changed. And that can be scary. Hey, millions of us already share a big idea for how things can be better. Instead of this dinosaur economy that focuses only on corporate profits, we want a new economy that puts safe products, happy people, and a healthy planet first. Duh! Isn't that what an economy should be for? Trying to live eco-perfectly in today's system is like trying to swim upstream when the current is pushing us all the other way. But by changing what our economy prioritizes, we can change that current so that the right thing becomes the easiest thing to do. Second, the millions of ordinary people who made these extraordinary changes didn't try to do it alone. They didn't just say, I will be more responsible. They said, we will work together until the problem is solved. Today, it's easier than ever to work together. Can you imagine how hard it was to get a message across India in 1930? We can do it now in less than a second. Finally, these movements succeeded in creating change because they took their big idea and their commitment to work together, and then they took action. Did you know that when Martin Luther King Jr. organized his March on Washington, less than a quarter of Americans supported him? But that was enough to make change because those supporters took action. They did stuff. Today, 74% of Americans support tougher laws on toxic chemicals. 83% want clean energy laws. 85% think corporations should have less influence in government. We've got the big idea and the commitment. We just haven't turned it all into massive action yet. And this is our only missing piece. So let's do it. Making real change takes all kinds of citizens, not just protesters. When you realize what you're good at and what you like to do, plugging in doesn't seem so hard. Whatever you have to offer, a better future needs it. So ask yourself, what kind of change maker am I? We need investigators, communicators, builders, resistors, nurturers, and networkers. At storyofstuff.org, you can explore these types of change makers and find your first or your next step to take action. Being a responsible citizen starts with voting. That's one of those basic things that everyone's just got to do. But it gets way more exciting and fun when we put our unique skills and interests to work alongside thousands of others. I know that changing a whole economic system is a huge challenge. It's not easy to see a clear path from where we are today to where we need to go. And there's no 10 simple things we can do without leaving our couches. But the path didn't start out clear to all these guys either. Dr. King said, faith is taking the first step even though you don't see the whole staircase. So they worked hard to get organized, practiced the small acts that built their citizen muscles, and kept their focus on their big idea. And when the time was right, they were ready. It's time for us to get ready too. Ready to make change and write the next chapter in the story of stuff.
Well, the applause tells me you enjoyed that little video, and I encourage everyone to watch all the videos. There's some questions about that are surfacing about the economy from a gentleman here who's interested in how this transition works between large Walmart-level corporations who have the efficiency of scale and the efficiency of distribution systems and the whole system. But I recommend that you look at the story of stuff, the original one, which talks about the extraction, the way our economy actually works in terms of how much is thrown away. And I think you'll discover that the efficiencies are not there. They're subsidized and they're efficient in a way that has created a system that is using 1.5 Earths. So it's not that it isn't efficient, it's a remarkably efficient system if you ignore the externalities of wasting the Earth. So that's the problem there. But it's a common concern, and price is a big concern, obviously. Now you can't see this very well because it's pretty hard to see. But the words underneath that are deep state. There's an interview that Bill Moyers did with Mike Lofgren where he talked about the deep state, which is a very complicated idea. But if you want to have a shorthand, you can think of it as the United States empire, ruled from Washington, D.C. Now, this is not going to be a conspiracy theory. See if I got my right things here. Okay. So, The deep state is a handy term for what Mike Lofgren, who was interviewed by Bill Moyers, calls, and he has an article on the website, by the way, billmoyers.com, which describes in much more detail than I'm going to give you now about how the deep state actually functions. And it's a useful concept because we have to figure out how to disrupt a deep state where there's a deep consensus about how things work, how they just work inevitably, how we have them organized now through the global economy. It's a big, tall order. So we have to figure out how to do this. Now, the system evolved out of a combination of 6 things that I'm going to identify here, just so you'll get a big picture view of what he means by the deep state. 1, the corporate growth into multinational corporations. You know, they weren't always multinational corporations, but what happened after, and I won't get into a lot of detail at all because I know I'm short on time here, I got to get this thing moving, but you all know that that's happened, and after the breakup of the colonial, the British Empire and the previous empires, the corporations have become the dominant force and the dominant influence on governments. So the second piece is the international banking and financial investment systems, which have evolved with those multinational corporations to keep that complex global economy running with investments and et cetera. Number 3, the influence of these corporate and banking systems on governments, especially at the national level. You all know that there's a huge lobbying effort that continues to basically rig the system, as Elizabeth Warren says. The system is rigged, and it's rigged by lobbyists who represent those corporations. Hi. Okay, number 4, the leadership of the United States in implementing free trade policies and enforcing them with diplomatic and military services. So just think about how we have made free trade the option and we did this in the 20th century largely to fight communism, to bring in more countries that would be on our side and would be available to corporate interest in those developing countries. Number 5, the sciences and technologies that support these systems in creating an integrated global economy that moves capital and goods and services anywhere on the planet. So if you think about computers and the internet, they couldn't be moving this money and this capital and moving labor forces to other countries and creating this global economy without the assistance of technology. And they couldn't use the surveillance techniques either without these technologies. They couldn't use those marketing strategies which know everything about us without the technology to do that. And 6, and finally, media communications infrastructure that effectively serves the interest of the deep state or the empire. Okay, so those 6 functions, those 6 trends have combined. They're all human-created trends, but they've become amazingly effective and efficient in creating a sense that it's inevitable. We live in this reality every day, and we are told that there is no alternative. TINA, T-I-N-A, TINA is the acronym for There Is No Alternative. It tells us that the evolution of the deep state empire is natural, inevitable, and our job is to adapt to it and believe that its interests are our interests. Okay? We all live this every day, and the options for us to participate in it are everywhere. We always have the option to go to the discount store, to go to the chain grocery store, to do all of these behaviors. We, hop on in your car and go to wherever the latest shopping mall has been located. And you can ignore the ones that are all sitting vacant if you drive southeast or west in Columbus, and we don't even have the money to tear them down and build anew. So that's an issue. Now, I've got to... Okay, this is another this is another graphic that's hard to see, but on the lower left-hand corner is President Obama playing a fiddle, and you've all heard the phrase when fiddling while Rome is burning. Okay, so this is a metaphor for climate change, for global warming, for the fact that we're tweaking the system when it's in fact needs big changes. We need to reinvent a lot of stuff in order to make things happen. Okay, so. The next. So I'm back to this, but my point here is that, I think I missed one. Well, okay. In the haste of the morning, I forgot to put my David and Goliath image in there. So the idea being that we're the Davids, and we have a lot of big corporate interests that are not necessarily in our interest from the point of view of sustainability. So local and sustainable, if that's going to be the future, it's going to be a big challenge to go up against the deep state, which the great majority of people are mindlessly and programmed to participate in the consumer economy, to assume that it's inevitable. The technology evolving the way it has is inevitable. It invades our privacy. Well, that's just the way it is. We have the technology, so you have to conform. Just don't do anything bad and you'll be okay. Okay, so if we want to fight that system, it's going to require some serious efforts. And the first thing we have to do is simply recognize that the deep state empire, for what it is, a powerful integrated system that we have created. You know, they're not bad people that are participating in this. They're all people just like us, but they have an opportunity to work for a large corporation or a bank or whatever. That's us. You know, a lot of us are doing that. You know, you're working in a warehouse. You're working in things that basically are cogs in the machines. Yeah.
And the participation is entrenching it.
Yes. That's right. So that's a very good point. That it's such an entrenched system that we recreated and make it happen every day. We participate in it. Now, we're waking up all around the planet to a new story that is empowering us all to create a new relationship to the Earth. As Thomas Berry and David Korten frame it, we are moving from empire to Earth communities. Now, that's a significant phrase. We're to Earth communities. All right, this new story is based on a new science that tells us we are an integral part of the Earth systems. We know this. We know we can't poison our food and to get away with it forever. That's not a good plan. We know we know from climate change scientists that this is a problem that's not going away. We're going to have runaway climate change if we don't switch to renewable energy. You know, we know this. But we have the science that backs it. We have the information. So our job as localists is to reinvent our economy and our communities as part of the Earth systems. Remember, we had that original vision. Is we have to have a local economy that's place-based, that pays attention to where we get stuff, that has people working in businesses and organizations and social enterprises that are rooted in our community, that are doing services for our community and not just to rake out profits for some non-local investor on Wall Street. Now, right now, this is exactly what we are doing in all our separate agendas. We're reinventing our food systems. We're reinventing our banking and money systems, our localized businesses and trading systems, our localized renewable energy systems, our transportation systems, and above all, we're trying to take back our democracy by getting money out of politics through the move to amend, the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, which will end the idea that corporations are people and have the right to the same rights as us as citizens in the voting arena. So our job now is to connect all the dots of the localist agenda and see that our work locally in social justice, environmental protection, and creation of a new cooperative and sharing economy is really one great transition agenda. And that together we can and will disrupt the deep state empire, restore democracy, and create a sustainable future. Now, we start where we are located, local. And as we do the work of transition, changes will emerge from the bottom up and reach into political policy changes that will support a new Earth-centered culture toward the localist vision. It's called reading the wrong thing here. Okay. Now, so all of those are the dots that we've been talking about. And we're going to have, I'm going to do one more thing because the power of song is very important to include a movement. When you have a movement, you want people to get behind it. The civil rights movement saying, "We shall overcome." And you know, there's whole videos about the role of song. Here's a great song we're going to play for you before we move into the transition. We're going to talk about all the people who are working right here in Columbus, Ohio, to make these changes that we're going to reinvent the way we do business, the way we do our food system, the way we build, the way we transport. All of those systems are changing, and we're going to make that happen from the bottom up. As we do this, we don't want to remain alternative. We don't want to sit on the side. We want to be the mainstream. We want to be the people who are creating a sustainable future and creating the policies at all levels, corporate and government, that will make us sustainable. Okay, so here comes the song.
Ye come here and gather round the stage. The time has come for us to voice our rage against the ones who've trapped us in a cage, to steal from us the value of our wage, from underneath the vestiture of law. The lobbyists at Washington do gnaw. At liberty the bureaucrats guffaw. And until they are purged we won't withdraw. We'll occupy the streets, we'll occupy the courts, we'll occupy the offices of you, till you do the bidding of the many, not the few. Our nation was built upon the right of every person to improve their plight. The laws of this republic they rewrite, and now a few own everything in sight. They own it free of liability. They own that they are not like you and me. Their influence dictates legality, and until they are stopped, we are not free. We'll occupy the streets, we'll occupy the courts, we'll occupy the offices of you, till you do the bidding of the many, not the few. You enforce your monopolies with guns, while sacrificing our daughters and sons. But certain things belong to everyone. Your thievery has left the people none. So take heed of our notice to redress. We had little to lose, we must confess. Your empty words do leave us unimpressed. The growing number join us in protest. We occupy the streets, we occupy the courts, we occupy the offices of you, till you do the bidding of the many, not the few. You can't divide us into sides, and from our gaze you cannot hide. Denial serves to amplify, and our allegiance you can't buy. Our government is not for sale. The banks do not deserve a bail. We will not reward those who fail. We will not move till we prevail. We'll occupy the streets, we'll occupy the courts, we'll occupy the offices of you, till you do the bidding of the many, not the few. We'll occupy the streets, we'll occupy the courts, we'll occupy the offices of you, till you do the bidding of the many, not the few. We are the many, all the few.
All right. We can take it back. They're the few. We can do this. So we're going to talk in a little bit. We're going to introduce some people that are in our audience and are going to actually doing the work to reinvent the institutions that we're working with today, including ComFest. We're going to change some things at ComFest too. But first, I'm going to. Okay, I think I'll deal with this later. And right now, I'm going to turn it over to Ina Kinney. Ina is the founder and the head of the Economic and Community Development Institute right here in Columbus. How many people have you, raise your hand if you've heard of ECDI? We got a good majority here, so this is great. Yep. No, you need to speak because this is going to be on YouTube. And we'll get, yeah. So, yeah, you should get up really to get the, unless they can get the camera on her. She's hurt her ankle, so she wants to be able to talk from here. Okay, it's just an.
Tell him what she said. Tell him what she said.
You want to move the chair over here?
No, it's okay. I'll be fine.
Okay.
I can person. What's the matter? Why is it doing this?
Just stay away from it.
I will stay far away. Right here. Hi. Sorry about that, guys. Alrighty. So you guys have heard of ECDI. How have you heard about us? Everywhere? That's good because you know what? I thought we were the best kept secret in Columbus. So that's right. Thank you. And Chuck's been a really huge help with getting the word out about the organization. So I'm here to talk to you about our Invest Local Ohio Fund, which is a fund that we created for the state of Ohio, people who live within a state, to keep money local. Chuck's always talked about localism, keeping our money local. ECDI is an organization that we help people start and expand businesses. We'll be celebrating our 10th year anniversary on Tuesday. 10 years, you guys. 10 years, I know. Thank you. So, you know, what do? We educate, we invest, and we innovate. Oh my gosh, there you are. Hi. I didn't see you. Can't see, I'm getting old. We educate, we innovate, and we invest. To date, we have helped start and expand over 3,000 businesses and have created over 6,000 jobs throughout the state of Ohio. We started in Columbus, and then we have offices now in Cleveland, Toledo, and we're getting ready to open up Akron. Small business economy, local economy is the fundamental right for everybody. This is what this country was founded upon, right? And so we try to promote that. So we are the organization where people come to. It's a one-stop shop. They can get training to start a business, to expand a business, to get technical assistance, one-on-one, because that's very important for small businesses, especially ones that are 1 or 2 man shops, because you know, what do they know how to do? They know how to do the specific thing. However, they need a lot of assistance, such as sales, such as marketing, such as accounting, HR, you name it, businesses need it. That's where ECDI comes in. We believe the front end is so critical to success of a startup. We also believe that what you do after a business started is equally as important, because we know that 2 out of 3 small businesses fail. So our goal is to make sure that that doesn't happen. In order for that not to happen, we also are able to capitalize these businesses. So our capitalization strategies have 2 separate models. One is a grant. For those businesses that qualify, we will give them a grant to get started. Then we help them get capital through a loan. ECDI loans from $500 all the way up to $350,000 for business startup and expansion. Now, the reason why I'm here is to talk to you about our fund, which is one of our 41 loan funds. It's called Invest Local Ohio Fund. We filed with the State of Ohio Department of Securities, and we're able to get $1 million fund established, which allows us to allow people like you to invest within our loan fund and actually make money off of that investment. So if you could, for instance, you have money in a bank, and how much does it earn? less than half a quarter, 1.111%, right? Or you put money in a Wall Street, you put money in a money market, or you put money into securities. But again, it doesn't stay local. If you invest in ECDI, your money stays local, and we guarantee that you will get a return on your investment. Now, it's not a secured product because we're not a bank, but we've been doing this for 3 years, and everybody's been able to get returns. So what we pay on a 3-year note, we pay 2% back, and on a 5-year note, you pay 3% back. We guarantee you that we're gonna leverage your money at least 3 to 1 with other funds. And this money goes to our local businesses. To date, we have capitalized these businesses for over $18 million. And our average loan continues to be under $20,000. A lot of businesses, a lot of lending. We do our own underwriting, our servicing. And you know, you look around here, you'll probably find one of our businesses in this market, right? Chuck's familiar with a lot of them. So I urge you guys to invest in our local economy. Whether you do it through ECDI, that's not that important. I mean, it is, but you know, I can't. But you know, go and visit your local businesses, support the local businesses, because that's what makes our economy, our city so great. So thank you. I'm going to leave my cards here. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? Oh, who wants to invest?
Where do we go for more information?
Chuck's got our information. I will leave my cards. You can call ECDI at, well, 559, that's right, he's reporting, 0115, and our website is ecdi.org. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Eva. That was great. And we do have ECDI flyers and folders at the Simply Living booth in the Peace Village. So feel free to stop by. Our next Wolf Star is a star in the Small Business Beanstalk. That's what SBB stands for. It's thesbb.com. And they are our buy local resource in the Central Ohio area. And if you haven't stopped by their booth or Simply Living's, we have their great little directory. And we have them right here to pass out. So here is Wolf Star. Timothy Wolf Star.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, first off, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Tim, and the whole team at ComFest and I would like to thank Chuck for ENA as well. And speaking of ENA, our organization would not be where we were without ECDI. We're one of the products. When we were in a really, really tough spot about 3 years ago, they gave us a home and they incubated us to grow into standing on our own legs and being where we are now. So they do everything for businesses, and what they can't do, they'll connect you with, and it's pretty awesome. So here's what we do. We're a shop local program. We have about 100,000 of these little key fobs out in the market. Does anyone have one of these cards yet? Awesome. For anyone who doesn't, if you guys want to pass these around. So we represent just over 500 businesses in the Central Ohio area. It ranges everything from your contractor that you need from services to your coffee shop. From a consumer level, if you use your card, you can get a free size upgrade, $1 off your crepe, pretty much deals from just about everywhere. So it's a really neat way where you're able to benefit from shopping local. You're able to save some money, and you're able to support the businesses as well. The part of our program that less people know about is that we play connectors and matchmakers between the different businesses. So when a business comes to us and they need to start up, or they need a connection, or they need a loan or something, we connect them with resources like ECDI, where we're able to pretty much connect the dots. So if you are working with a business, or you know anybody who is that needs a hand up or some help, that's exactly what we do. We represent small businesses, and what we can't do, we're very happy to connect the dots. And I just want to thank all of you for coming out today. I know you had a lot of options for how to spend your ComFest, but what Chuck's doing, what Ina's doing, what Tim's doing, it's extremely important, and that's part of why we're all here. So I want to thank you very much, and also let you all know to keep an eye out for Forge, who you'll be hearing from here in a minute, because they're going to be the next step in what's changing Columbus. So thank you very much for your time.
What's the SBB?
What's that? Oh, so one of the many products which we have is the SB Bean Store. which is an online marketplace where you can buy discounted coupons to different businesses. So it's sort of like Groupon or Living Social, just not bad. So what we focus on is it's a way for our businesses who are not able to pay a membership fee to still be involved, and it drives traffic to them. They do very, very well. They control exactly how much we put on there, how much we sell it for, and it's a way that all businesses can participate. Yes? Exactly. So it's like a local Groupon, but it's completely voluntary. The businesses that do it for promotion, and it's just another way that we can spread the news and let everyone know about great, great local opportunities. We do free movies. We do tons of events. Please find us on Facebook and come hang out with us at our tent, and we'll give you tons of good local prizes and stuff.
Thanks, Wolf. Yay. Okay, how about who wants to be next? Are you ready for Forge? Okay, Forge Columbus is just this amazing force, the Forge ahead, and that's part of the deal. We're going to be talking about that at 5:15. We're going to at the gazebo, and this young man is going to talk about what they're doing with Forge Columbus, and you'll walk away really excited about what the potential. They're going to bring all the young people involved in this. Let's make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you. My name's Tyler Durbin. I'm with Forge Columbus. I live here in the neighborhood. I had a really cool moment this morning. Spending late night here, listening to all the shows, closing the park down, walking back. I was up early again this morning, and it was a beautiful morning. So I just decided to kind of walk around Goodale, and the fleet of volunteers that were flooding in here early this morning and going out to refresh the water supplies and the food for the other volunteers. Like, it was kind of this weird moment where you're like, wow. This is a big deal. This is really is a community festival. And that's what Forge Columbus is about. It's about bringing together a community of people, their skills, their resources, their expertise, their passions, whatever it might be, creating a brigade of these people to help support the local businesses, the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, much like ECDI does, SBB does, but bringing the citizens into it and allowing them to volunteer their times in service. So there's a couple of programs within Forge that we're running now to help support the businesses and the other local entrepreneurs as well. The first one is Forge Ventures, and it's a program to launch, seed, support, incubate local businesses that might not qualify for other forms of traditional financing from the bigger banks and other programs. It allows us to kind of break some of the barriers down to help them realize some of their goals. We have a great story about a product called Torlitas. A woman from the east side named Tamla Walker had an idea one night. It was actually a dream. She had a dream about covering tortilla chips with chocolate. And so then she did it. And she, about a year or so ago, was featured on ABC's The Chew, the morning show. And so she wanted to turn this dream into a business, but she didn't have the capital. Banks wouldn't finance her, but she had a great product. It was featured on ABC. So what we did is we introduced a new program in Columbus called Kiva Zip. And Kiva is an international nonprofit that works to alleviate poverty in developing countries by connecting citizens with small business owners or people who have products that they'd like to sell. So they introduced this program in the United States. Forge was able to bring one of the first pilots in the country. We made Columbus one of among the first groups of cities to do that. And what it does is it allows people like you and me and all the community members to come together and not donate money like you would with a Kickstarter campaign, but actually finance, provide microloans to entrepreneurs like Tamla. So you can get online, and I remember financing some of her campaign. I gave her $20 to help her get some food permits, some new equipment to make it a little bit more efficient, and to rent some kitchen space to make her product. And over time, she started to repay that money back to me and the other people that provided money to get her up and going. So this is a wonderful program. Again, it's providing zero interest microloans to entrepreneurs to get their businesses up and going. And so very soon, hopefully Tamla and the Torlitas brand, you'll see it in Whole Foods soon. That'll be a story that we can all be proud of about Columbus. So that's part of Forge Ventures and bringing the Kiva. We want to make Columbus a Kiva city, and there's only a handful of them actually in the country. But it would allow us to have a revolving loan to really scale that operation. So look up Kiva. It's a wonderful organization. Anyone can participate. You can fund any type of project business there is out there, and you're actually financing and not just donating. Good program, right? So then, just coming off of that, we'll be later in 2014 or this year starting a thing called Forge Works, which is an incubator accelerator space that will be in the upstairs of 400 West Rich in Franklinton. There's already tons of awesome artists and local businesses that are there. We're going to add space to that to let these businesses and entrepreneurs provide them space, the business services they need to get up and running and support these other or supplement these other wonderful programs that are in the city. The more we can do to support, the better. So what I ask is check out forgecolumbus.org, pull your smartphone out, bookmark it. There's a place to sign up. We have, like I said, a whole brigade of volunteers that are offering their accounting expertise, financing, graphic design to help these local businesses with whatever it might be to keep their business up and running. So thank you guys. Happy CommFest. It's a beautiful day to be living in Columbus.
Thank you, Tyler. It's forgecolumbus.org, I believe, so check it out and enjoy. The next person I'd like to hear, we've been talking about businesses and entrepreneurs and triple bottom line ideas for how to reinvent the economy. We also need to think about the environment. So one of the people we have here today is David Roseman from the Sierra Club, and he's here to talk about the work that's going on locally to make sure we protect our environment and deal with important issues that are hanging like a cloud. And really, you can think of climate change as this big dark cloud that's giving us the opportunity to reinvent everything. So instead of treating it as a terrible thing, we just need to use it as a leverage point to make things happen. So please welcome David Roseman from the Ohio Sierra Club.
I know this side. Hello, thank you, Chuck, and thanks to CommFest. See, I'm over here. Be in the middle. Middle. All right. Okay. Well, I'm a speaker. Did that off the top of my head. And thanks to IBEW. And isn't this a great solar stage? We're pretty much offline? 100%? Okay. So I'm burning a lot of heat, but we're consuming it right here on the site. So wonderful, wonderful. I'm with Sierra Club. Has anybody not heard of Sierra Club? Okay, the next quiz. Who's a member of Sierra Club? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Sierra Club is 120 years old. 1892, John Muir founded us. We're the largest lobbying and environmental conservation advocacy grassroots group in the United States. Yes, I did say lobbying. We are the people that have to take the other side when we got Alec and the Koch brothers that are spewing all their stuff. So we're on the left, and we're proud of it. And so our mission is to enjoy, protect, and explore the planet. And protect is one of the three things. We like to do the exploring and enjoying first, but we also have to protect it. So we have outings groups that will go out and do hikes weekly. We have people that will do mountain climbing and rock climbing and canoeing, depending on where you are in the U.S. And I'm the chair of the Central Ohio group. We have over 3,500 dues-paying members. Thank you very much. You became a member locally, and you became a member of the state when you joined the Sierra Club National. So just based upon your zip code, you're plotted right into our area. And the Central Ohio group, which I chair, has 20 counties in Central Ohio. So that's just a little bit. And I just had to write down a few notes here because we're doing so many different things. I can't keep up with what we're doing. We have over 500 employees throughout the U.S. Here in Ohio, we have the privilege of having 7 employees that work either remotely up along Lake Erie, or we do have an office down at Long and High Street, so feel free to come up and visit us sometime. We have climate change is the big thing on everybody's plate, so we're out there talking to senators, representatives, your representatives. We need you to make sure that you are on our national email list so that when we send you an action alert, you might please take some action. Now, I do know there's probably an action alert that's sent out every other day because you never know what they're throwing at us. But it does matter, and it does make an important determination by them listening to what you've got to say. We're running conservation programs all over the place. I mean, things that we're dealing with right now, toxic algae, I think that was in the paper again today. I mean, we've got that right in Hoover Reservoir. City of Columbus gets 1/4 of their drinking water from Hoover Reservoir, and yet we found out they don't have a lot of consistent testing. Though when you ask them, they say we do it routinely. Well, what's routine? Well, when we get around to it. So anyway, we find out a lot of things by asking a lot of tough questions. You'll hear things beyond coal, beyond natural gas. You'll hear things fracking, fracking, fracking. Now, Sierra Club has not officially come out to say we're against hydraulic fracturing to produce natural gas. However, we are against all the practices that they're currently using to get the fracking and to extract the natural gas before, during, and after. So until those processes are set up in place, yes, from or less, we're against fracturing. Ohio has also become, and right here in Columbus along the Allen Creek, the dumping ground because of the legislators at mind to say, hey, no other state in the surrounding area will take the waste, but Ohio's open for business, we'll take it. So we're injecting it in the ground. We're causing scientifically causal earthquakes in the Northeast. We're putting it in not the appropriate controlled wells that can control those type of toxic substances. Other counties are letting them put those toxic waste on the roadways. They classify it as brine. Now, when we talk about salt water, we don't think of salt water laced with 500 different carcinogenic causing chemicals that they're not releasing to the public. Only if you're ill, then will the doctor release it, and then they're not allowed to share it with the public. Just little minor things that are happening around here. Toxic algae in the lakes I mentioned, that's caused by vast manure that's coming from big giant corporate farms that are all over, as well as failing septic systems because a lot of counties don't have the money to hook up communities to proper stormwater and, sanitary water systems, and those septic systems are leaching. So because of us, we're the ones that are suing everybody. We hate to do that, but we have to sometimes, okay, you're violating Clean Water Act. So because of us, the Ohio EPA ended up suing City of Columbus in violation of Clean Water Act. So Columbus has budgeted $2.5 billion, yes, with a B, billion. They've spent $1 billion to date for a 40-year project to eliminate raw sewage from going into the Scioto, the Olentangy, the Allen Creek, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you. Sierra Club was the one that was originally on this lawsuit. Ohio EPA said, no, we got it from here, so we were kind of took a sideline, which is fine. But things that are happening now that you'll see, I mean, there is a crane. You can kind of see it from here. There's a big tunnel that's going underground, and they're creating this big tunnel to store the overflow. To store the excess water and the excess waste that the sanitary treatment plants can't capture downstream. We said, gee, why are you trying to store and capture something and then deal with treating it downstream when we can maybe prevent it to begin with? So what's going on right now, Columbus finally listened, and the new director, Greg Davies, and I'm sorry I'm going on, so shut me up if you want me to. Anyway, the new Public Utilities Director, Greg Davies, got the Ohio EPA to amend the consent decree to try something new that they're now branding as Blueprint Columbus. And now they're going to be spending about $10,000 per home in the older Clintonville area as a pilot project, but to actually deal with the infiltration at the source. And they're lining everybody's lateral line, your private line, from your house to the main sanitary line so that it no longer has cracks and leaks, because what they're finding out is rainwater is soaking it into your sanitary line. And all that excess water, it's good water, but that's combining with the sanitary water, and the sanitary system can't deal with treating it in a timely fashion. Therefore, you have these overflows. And when you bicycle or hike down the trails, the Greenway Trail systems, you'll see these signs. You know, caution, do not swim here, sanitary sewer overflow. And you also wonder why, gee, why does it smell here in the summertime? And those are some of the issues. And again, when there's you got a wet weather event, it raining a lot. They call it a wet weather event. When you get a lot of rain, that's when you get the overflow events. So those are some of the things that we're keeping on top of Columbus, encouraging them to do. So Columbus is going down the right path. They're trying to not spend quite $2.5 billion if they can. They're also going to create rain gardens along these grassy right-of-way strips between the sidewalks and the streets. So they're taking people's gutters and they're going to direct it there before it goes into your stormwater, so it doesn't go into your sanitary system. So a lot of things that you're going to be seeing now up front that's going to be right there invisible in our front eye. Other things, come over to our booth. We're at P7 along Park Street. You can get more information. I brought some literature with me. I'll be glad to pass that out, or a sign-up sheet. We have meetings twice a month, once a month with the executive committee, another month with the conservation committee meeting. We're dealing with forestry lands, with zoning, rezoning issues. People say, gee, they want to change zoning and tear down this whole greenway space or get less buffer. We're the people that will help provide input. Sometimes, yeah, we can bring the legal eagles to bear if we have the budget to do something like that. So, we want to hear about all these things. We're also encouraging bike commuting and alternate public transit through City of Columbus. They just signed a 3-foot passing rule to further encourage that. We're on board to do that. Work with Metro Parks, we're working with MORPC on a lot of those things. Anybody bike here today? All right, good. So, there's a great bike corral over that way, so we encourage you to use that. And those are the things we're trying to do as well, get more public transit in the budget for ODOT. So my wife's saying, stop. Okay. 2 more things. Agricultural pesticides. They're aerial spraying that right now, except in Columbus, because we spoke up and we got a big Clintonville active group saying they're spraying non-selective pesticides to get rid of the gypsy moth. Now we want to get rid of the gypsy moth, but there's 2 chemicals. One that's non-selective, it'll kill all the pollinators, the butterfly, larvae, et cetera, et cetera. Another one that, yes, it is more expensive, but it's selective just to interfere with the gypsy moth's larval stage in their biology. So we're trying to encourage the Department of Ag not to do this, but this year they're doing aerial spraying all over Ohio with non-selective pesticides. We're complaining our bee populations are going down. We want to buy local. We want to, not deal with GMOs and things like that, but we also have to have them quit spraying chemicals in our air 24/7, or you never know when that's going to happen. They're also doing clear cutting of our state and national forests, which a lot of people don't know about, happening down in the Shawnee and the Wayne. We have people down there going on hikes and saying, where's the trail? Yeah, it's done. So thank you very much, Chuck, for having us here. Appreciate your time. Have a good time at ComFest.
Thanks, Dave. The Sierra Club has a comprehensive agenda, and we're really lucky in Columbus to have the Ohio Sierra Club right downtown, a great resource, as well as the local opportunities to get involved. I'd like to introduce Dave Deal. He's going to talk about green building and what was the Green Building Columbus Council. And again, a key part of how we connect the dots is to be aware of all of these ways in which the local is affecting the larger economy, and this has made great progress. You can tell us about how much progress is being made about green building.
Sure, thanks, Chuck. Dave, certainly passionate, so I think we can all tell that and appreciate it, all the different issues that the Sierra Club is working on. So we're focused a little bit more centrally on green buildings and the importance of green buildings. And green buildings are obviously important because they deal with people, and we inhabit and have created a huge footprint across the country and globe, right? And so green buildings can really help reduce that footprint. How many of you think that it's important that our children have the best places that they possibly can to learn in? Just by a show of hands, right? Everybody. How many of you think that tax dollars should be spent wisely? Also, unanimous, right? Okay. The Central Ohio Green Building Chapter is working really hard on a couple of those fronts, and I just want to tell you about those 2 things real quickly. So when it comes to schools, does anyone know that the state of Ohio has the most green schools in the country? Over 135 green LEED certified schools in the state of Ohio. Is anyone aware of that? That's a national leader, okay? So that's something that everyone should be aware of, and just, you know, if it comes up in conversation, don't be afraid to let folks know about that, okay? And that's a result of good legislation and good policy, all right? And so at the Central Ohio chapter, the USGB Central Ohio chapter, that's a lot of what we're working on, is trying to tie policy initiatives with outcomes, okay? And so as a result, our students and our kids have better places to learn in. So just want to talk in a little bit more detail about that. We're also trying to understand and quantify and define the outcomes associated with those green schools, okay? So looking at educational outcomes as a result of those 130 odd schools that we now have built throughout the state of Ohio, and looking at how those schools impact learning, dollars spent on operations and maintenance and energy use in comparison to non-green schools throughout the state, so that we can further incentivize and push legislation to be using our tax dollars wisely and providing environments for our students that are of the highest quality. So those are just two of the most significant initiatives that our chapter is working on. The one other thing that I want to mention is that there's a Senate resolution right now out in the House, and it's focusing on banning the use of lead. It's called Senate Concurrent Resolution 2025, and it's really just focused on some special interest groups that have brought this legislation forward, specifically the American Chemistry Council. But if you have time or you have an opportunity to call your local legislator and let them know how important you think green schools and green buildings are, and the use of public dollars on green buildings is an acceptable and, in fact, an important use of our money, because, again, it reduces operations and maintenance costs and energy use and things of that nature. So just be aware also that Senate Concurrent Resolution 25 is sitting in a committee right now. We don't think it's going to pass, but if you do have time to call your local legislator, that would be a good thing to do. So you can find out more about us at the USGBC Central Ohio chapter. It's just centralohiousgbc.org, and there's lots of good information there. We have about 350 members, individuals and organizations, and do all kinds of monthly events and educational events and things like that. So I would say just go to our website if you want to know more. I'll also be hanging out after. We just think that green buildings are important, okay? Energy use and climate change and things of that nature, I think everyone's aware of those things and how important those issues are. Well, buildings are the biggest single opportunity for us to make a change when it comes to those things, because they use and have up to 70% of all energy uses embedded in our buildings. So we think that that's a real logical place to start in terms of reducing our environmental impact. And at the end of the day, it's really all about people and providing better environments for our students and the people who work in buildings and things of that nature to live in. So thanks again, Chuck, for inviting us here. And we think everything that Chuck is doing from a local perspective is also really important. Green buildings focus on local materials, local manufacturers, local businesses. So tying everything into that agenda, I think, is really important as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. How many people knew about the U.S. Green Building Council and the Columbus chapter? Not many. This is the value of connecting the dots. And the next speaker I want to introduce now is Mac. Who are you? We're going to have how many of you are familiar with the term like hyper-local? Like they're hyper-local, like the local newspapers for the Booster and in Columbus. Knowing what's happening in the neighborhood level is critical. Like Wolf talked about the SBB and the local business. You can actually look up, I live in Clintonville, I live in Hilliard, I live in Short North, I live in Worthington. What are the locally owned businesses there? So we have a great neighborhood in Columbus called Clintonville, and we have a representative who's actually developing an actual transition effort right there in Clintonville, right in Columbus. He's the leader of our transition hub at Simply Living, Matt Crawford. Welcome.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the other speakers. How many of you have heard of transition movement? So just a fraction of you. Well, I hope everybody here today is a conservative. How many of you are conservatives? Meaning you want to conserve our natural resources. You want there to be things there for coming generations. Okay. So to paraphrase Bill McKibben, The radicals are the fossil fuel companies who have been engaging in an uncontrolled experiment, releasing billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And this carbon dioxide came from millions of years of solar, the sun, growing vegetation and animals to produce coal, oil, and natural gas. These companies have been able to put this pollution into the atmosphere without paying a dime for it. How many companies would love to be able to pollute at will without having to pay for it? These are the externalities that Chuck referred to. It's a part of our economic system that isn't accounted for in gross domestic product, for example. So the Deepwater Horizon can spill millions of barrels of oil into the Gulf, and that actually adds to the gross domestic product. All the costs of cleanup. That's all money expended by the government and by others that adds to our GDP. So we have to get past this. And so what's one way to do this? The transition movement is trying to get around this bottleneck, this governmental bottleneck, which is, at this point we're stymied, it seems like. We're having a hard time getting any traction. The president is having to make executive decrees to regulate carbon. So transition is a worldwide movement, and essentially the idea is to get us off fossil fuels, transition off fossil fuels by building local resilience. Resilience is the ability to take a shock to the system. And we want to systematically move towards renewable energy. Well, Chuck mentioned the transition hub in Central Ohio. Simply Living is that hub. So there are over 300 transition towns in the world. There's Transition Tokyo, Transition LA, but we have a Transition Central Ohio hub. And in Clintonville, we've started Transition Clintonville, and there's actually a Transition Street, Transition Como. There are a bunch of other sustainability groups. There's Sustainable Delaware. Sheila here is part of that. Transition Clinton, or there's a Sustainable Delaware. There's also a Sustainable Clintonville and Sustainable Worthington. So there are all these groups. Local Matters, Yay Bikes, Consider Biking. So the food, transit, energy, all these things are happening around Columbus. And it seemed you really don't even know how much is going. If you talk to Chuck for about a half hour sometime, he can rattle it all off from memory. But there are about 150 official transition towns in the U.S., and including Simply Living. So we're at ComFest, the community festival. That's what the transition movement and all these other groups are trying to do, is build community. Learn, meet your neighbors. Get out and sit on your front porch, walk the neighborhood, talk to people, and develop some common interests. Transition Clintonville has established something called the Clintonville Energy Co-op. We're trying to take out 30 to 50% of the cost of installing solar panels by learning to do the things they call it the soft costs of solar installation, which include things like planning, drawing up plans, drawing up the system, and some of the engineering things, as well as installation. So we've got about eight pilot homes scheduled. We put one in on Cook Road a few months ago. Went very well. I mentioned the sustainable groups. Sustainability is a word that is often used, and some people don't understand it, or they think it's overused. But the essence of it is to craft a culture that provides for the needs of our current populations without endangering future generations. So a lot of you are already doing this work, and so you can start, if you're not doing it, you can get started by meeting your neighbors. Take a look at www.transition.org or transitionus.org, and you can see what's happening here, but it is a worldwide movement. So with that, if anybody has any questions, happy to answer those. Otherwise, me personally? Yeah, we've got go to the Simply Living website, and you can get, we're listed there, right? Yeah, so Transition Clintonville's listed there. Also, our energy co-op has a website, www.cec-co-op.org, freedom.org. So with that, thanks, Chuck.
CEC, meaning Clean Energy Co-op. How cool. Thanks. Huh? Clintonville Energy Co-op. Well, then next is perhaps our last but not least, certainly the most important thing in terms of the changes that we need in order to get money out of politics and some ways to build sharing into our community. I want to introduce Michael Greenman, who is the leader for many of these causes and a very articulate spokesperson. He'll tell you more about it right now. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Chuck. What a weight to put on me, an articulate speaker. I'm Michael Greenman, and I'm going to talk to you about the macro and the micro this afternoon. Now, those are big words, but I think you'll know what I mean as we go forward. You heard about Move to Amend. That's the thing that right here is the macro. Just about every one of the issues you heard about this afternoon is being impacted by the power of corporations to prevent things from happening. Food, energy, alternative energy. The reason we don't have alternative energy is that it doesn't create a cash flow for the big companies. So they're not going to let it happen as long as they have something to say about it. And I could go into healthcare, labor, media, income inequality, and on and on. All these issues are issues that many good people are spending a lot of time on, doing a lot of good work, but they're always running up against the brick wall of corporate personhood. Corporate personhood is the fact that today, thanks to the Supreme Courts, since 1817, corporations have little by little been given access to our Constitution. Today, a corporation can go to court and claim to be abused or having their rights violated on the 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th, and 14th Amendments, and maybe there are others that I haven't even caught on to yet. We've got to stop that. It shouldn't be that way. It wasn't intended to be that way. So Move to Amend is a national organization, a cooperative, a coalition of hundreds of organizations around the country that are working together from the grassroots, people like us, right here in Columbus and all around the country, to push our leaders, legislators, and mayors to pass resolutions and then legislation stating that corporations are not persons, and along with that goes the fact that money is speech. Those two together give corporations and the rich, the wealthy, the 1%, a complete stranglehold over people, and we can't do anything about it. It's going to take a constitutional amendment. But Congress isn't going to present it. They're not going to introduce it, because if they did so, it would take away most of their income. So it has to be a grassroots program that goes from the ground level up. Today, over 500 cities around the country have passed resolutions for a constitutional amendment, and 16 states have done the same thing. And unless you're in Move to Amend or on our mailing list, I'll bet you don't know that, because the national media, the corporate media, doesn't want you to. So you've got to hear it from Move to Amend. And we are working nationally to get this amendment. When we have 33 states having approved demand for the amendment, we can then go to Congress, and they can't not open up the discussion about an amendment. So that is our goal. The 19th Amendment for women, suffrage for women, took 70 years to get to the point where it could get into Congress. The only reason it did was that President Wilson finally saw the light with all the women asking for it, and he decided to approve it. Then it went into Congress. With this one also, we believe that when 20% of the population is aware of this, it will have to go forward. So it's up to us. We as people, what's the time? I've got to keep an eye on my watch. Okay. We the people are supreme, but we have lost our supremacy. We had our American Revolution to free ourselves from being a colony. We decolonized ourselves primarily from the British East India Company and all of the colonies that were crown corporations telling us what to do. We decolonized ourselves. We have now been recolonized. I don't want to pop here. So it is up to us to decolonize ourselves, and the only way we can do it is through an amendment. Stick around here. Right after I'm finished, we're going to start into a showing of a movie that is a very recent movie on Move to Amend. Oh yeah, this is a nonpartisan, transpartisan. It is not a political movement because conservatives and liberals equally are against this situation with corporations having the power. So stick around. We're showing the legalized democracy movement, and we'll follow that up with a wonderful little skit, which is ridiculous in principle, but which is legally possible today. I will be having the pleasure of marrying a beautiful young lady to a corporation as a person. So stick around after this is over. Now that's the macro. The micro, what we can do here in the city, what we are doing here in the city, is something I call, or not I call, it is Care and Share Time Bank. A time bank is a service exchange organization through which people, everybody with skills, and who doesn't have skills and talents, is able to share those skills with others in the organization and to receive time credits. 1 credit for 1 hour, all hours are equal. Whether you're an optometrist, a lawyer, or mowing the lawn, for 1 hour you will get 1 hour's credit. And this allows people to get, well, we have over 200 services on our time bank right now, and we have 90 members, something like that. We have a potluck every third Sunday of the month at 6:30 at the First Unitarian Universalist Church. But we also have orientations to introduce people to this, and our next one happens to be this coming Monday at the Whetstone Library at 7 o'clock. And we'll be introducing the Time Bank to whoever comes. You could already be members of the Time Bank, but haven't really figured out how the system works. 7 o'clock at the Whetstone Library. You've heard about a couple of our members. Simply Living has been an affiliate for quite a while now. In fact, they use the Time Bank credits to compensate their volunteers for some of the work that they do in meetings around the city. The Energy Co-op is an affiliate of the Time Bank. Also is the First Unitarian Universalist Church and the Interfaith Alliance of Central Ohio, with whom we are working to take this to still more religious organizations around the city. In a time of low employment or underemployment, being able to receive services for exchanging an hour for an hour is a tremendous advantage. There's no cash involved. You can get babysitting, drives to the airport, caring for elderly. One of our members had their whole house painted. She's a masseuse, and she gave massages for quite a few weeks, and then gave the credits to the people who painted her house. Some people love painting houses. Who knew? I don't, but some people do, and she got her whole house painted. So the macro and the micro, Move to Amend Central Ohio, and we have our meetings of Move to Amend Central Ohio the 3rd Saturday of every month at the First UU Church, 93 West Weisheimer at 12 o'clock. And the Time Bank, Care and Share Time Bank, our potlucks are the 3rd Sunday at same place, First UU Church, and the orientations as we announce them by email and announcements. So that's it, the macro and the micro. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions about either of those?
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone. Just wrap it up by saying that there's lots more dots to connect. We just had time for a few today, but to give the feeling that it's a combination of movements. It's not just Simply Living and the partners we have in our local economy coalition, which are great. You can find out about those, and you can see a list of a lot of the partners at the simplyliving.org, our website. And we're going to be creating a website that really is designed to connect all these dots that we've been talking about. So you're going to see more of that. And again, the importance of it, as we go back to the original message I was trying to communicate about local and sustainable, we've got a big job ahead. We've got to deal with the deep state, the empire. If we're going to make that disruptive change in order to reinvent the whole local movement the way we want it, then we're going to have to work together and be as integrated on the local level as the big folks are, corporations are on the national and the international level. So thanks everyone for coming, and appreciate it. Round of applause for all the speakers.
Sanders from my home state of Vermont. Love that guy. people